failed my matric. I rewrote my matric. My goal was to go to Wits University. I didn't make it to go to Wits University because I didn't get, at the time, you would pass with what they would call an exemption. I think now it's called a bachelor's, right?
I passed with that.
I passed in an S,
Ish.
which was basically just
School living.
School living. So I couldn't make it to Wits University. I was one of those guys who ended up going to, at the time it was called Witwatersrand Technikon, Wits Tech, we used to call it. It used to have different campuses. Some of you guys who do go there, who've been to Johannesburg, you'd know the Dorenfontein campus. There was the Elof Street campus where there were design and fashion design students there. And there was the Auckland Park campus. And around my era, at the time, I studied Nabo Bugalav. We had a great episode with Kabelo here on the Hustlers Corner. Go check it out. I think it's about 8 or 10 episodes ago. We spoke about when we were still going to Wits Tech together, when they were still at Auckland Park, and just that environment, a machuba, a panorama, you know, back in those days when I just think about student life, it was so beautiful. But there was an opportunity that I wasn't going to make it even into Wits Tech because I did not have the money. Not only did I just get school leaving, but we didn't have enough money for me to even go and study. So my parents encouraged me to go and apply for NFSAS. Before it was NFSAS, it was something called TAFSA. So NFSAS was TAFSA at first. Luckily, I was one of the few lucky ones that were granted TAFSA. But I had to go in Yotabalaza. The example that Upenyual was making on an episode that we recorded next door, a virtual Mkuku, Uguti, when a student on social media asked me to give them money for registration, instead, I showed them how to make that money in a day, selling more fire, which on that day, I think we raised about 2,500 rands in a space of about 4 or 5 hours, selling, sweating from car to car, from shop to shop, selling with this kid. And she made it herself. It was just us selling with her, encouraging her to sell. And at some point she was crying, but she eventually achieved her goal in one day to raise that 2,500 rands selling more fire. So the reason why I did that, because I know the pain of not having, forget affording the studies, just the registration money on its own. My parents had to get a loan from FNB for me to get a registration. But only loan 3,000 rands for me to register at Wits Tech. And then luckily I told TAFSA. TAFSA yakona, it took me.
It was a loan back then?
It was a loan, yeah. It was not even a grant, it was a loan. But I just wanted to paint this picture of, you might be older now, you might be working now, but you might not fully understand or grasp or comprehend what the students are going through when they're protesting and some of their rights or other things that they might be protesting for. But the biggest one is funds and being able to get into university or get into higher institutions of learning and study, because that's all they're asking for, to just get in there and study and be treated like other students. So I know how difficult those days were for me. I know how difficult those days were for my parents, but eventually I got in there. And as much as I was not a great student, I was a student who failed his matric, who had to rewrite his matric. I was a student who had to apply for a TAFSA loan. I was a student who had to pay back that loan at a later stage. I was a student whose parents had to hustle hard to get a loan from FNB to get in there. At some point, I became a DJ Spoo. Now imagine if at that time, with failing my matric or with not having money to go to varsity, I'd given up on myself. So my message is just to say to you guys out there that even if you don't have that money to register, even if you're hustling and you're protesting to get into this varsity or this higher learning institution, don't be one of those students that end up being like, you know what, Mina Vela was not even meant to go to university. To hell with this thing. Fight the good fight.
Yeah, I just want to add something before you go to Penwell. Back then, please tell us about the process of registration, like how arduous it was, because obviously now it's all digital.